It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Howdy-howdy-o, hey. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? We've got two guests for your listening pleasure today. Our first guest is Eric Morris. Eric is a teacher who has been teaching acting around the world for over 50 years. He's also an author. He's written many books. No Acting Please, Being and Doing, Irreverent Acting, Acting, Imaging, and the Unconscious, amongst many other books. And his new book is called A Second Chance at Life, which is a therapeutic tool type self-help book, which actors can use, and anybody can use, actually. He tells us all about that in the interview. He's followed by James Ventry. James is a former professional boxer who is now an author and also a filmmaker. He is the co-owner of a studio called White Lion Studio, and they've done several motion pictures. Attack of the Killer Shrews is one that I happen to like. He's also got a book out called The Hypocrisy of America, which is available on Amazon. If you're an indie musician and you want to have your track featured on our show for a month, please check out our complete radio promotional package. Just go to douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP for complete details. It's a great deal. Your track will air 28 times a week for 1 month. Plus, you will get a 15-minute interview on our show. And we will also feature your profile on our website. And that will stay up permanently, even after your month is finished. So check it out, douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP. We will be right back with Eric Morris. Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Eric Morris. Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Very well. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Where do I start with you? Let's see. You are an acting teacher now. You're an author.
Yes, I'm also an actor. I've been an actor since, I guess I started studying in 1950, and I've been an actor ever since.
1950.
And I've been teaching since 1960.
Okay. You know, to be honest, in your pictures, you don't look that old. But
well, they're recent pictures, so they're not a lie, really. You know.
Well, you look very good, I must say.
Well, I'm a vegetarian, and I take care of myself. I work out, I take vitamins. I don't take drugs, and I don't drink. So, I mean, it's a winning combination, I think, you know. If I don't get hit by a bus, I'll be okay.
You'll be just fine, yeah, exactly. All right, why don't you just tell us a little about what you did as an actor? I assume you did that before you were teaching, correct? Or did you teach?
Yeah, well, I also did it while I was teaching, too, for many years. I've only stopped really pursuing my acting career in the last 10 years, really. So, well, I started out as a stage actor. I was trained at Northwestern University Theater. I got a degree, a bachelor's degree in theater, and I studied acting in various places with a number of people. And mostly I started in theater. I did 3 seasons of summer stock, 2 of which I did while I was at Northwestern. I did about 50 equity plays before I even left Chicago area and to go to Hollywood. You know, I decided that I wanted to be a film actor after doing around 50 plays, professional plays. And I came to Los Angeles, and I went into the Army. I was drafted. And in the Army, I was lucky enough to become a radio announcer and disc jockey at the hospital radio station. And so I spent most of my time being a radio announcer and disc jockey in the Army, except for the first 9 months I was in supply. I was a supply clerk at a infantry basic training company. But anyway, when I got out of the service, I started my career in Hollywood, and I started working. Overall, I've done about 25 films I've been in. I shouldn't say I've done. I've had various small parts, medium parts, big parts in about 25 films and about 50 television shows. And I was on 2 series. One was a syndicated series called Eyewitness to the Past. The other one was a network show, the new Phil Silvers show. I had a running part on that for a very short period of time. And so I did a lot of acting, in my career. And finally, I decided that it was time not to go running around and auditioning and everything. So I concentrated on writing my books. I've written 9, and pursuing just teaching. So I teach 3 classes each week, and I do writing. I have my next book planned, outlined, so I'm trying to promote this one, Second Chance at Life, which is not an acting book, actually. It's for actors, but it's for everybody else in the world, so it's for everybody. And it really is a second chance at life. It really opens the doors to dealing with getting rid of the damage in your life, getting in touch with who you really are, dealing with unsaid things, finding closure with people that you wish you had spoken to before. Some of them are now gone, but doing imaginary monologues to them, telling them how you feel or felt about them takes the monkey off your back. So there are a lot of sections in the book that really relate to how to deal with your demons and get rid of the damage that you've experienced and go forward and have a happy life. I think having a happy life is the goal, People out there who are not happy.
I agree.
And in some cases, they don't even know why they're not happy. I think this book is probably, if not the most important book that I've ever written. I think it's one of them for sure.
How does it relate to acting, though? How would an actor use that?
Well, actually, it all came out of my... let me roll back the tape for just a second. I teach a system based on Stanislavski. I was influenced by Lee Strasberg. It's a method approach. However, as I started teaching, I started creating and innovating additional techniques to the basic foundation of the Stanislavski system, and I've gone, light years beyond the original precepts of the method, and I've created my own particular system of acting, and out of the creation of that, working with people to liberate them from their obstacles, fears, and tension, and insecurities, and dependencies, and superstition, and religious blocks, and all of that. I created around 300 or 400 exercises to liberate people from the problems that kept them from being free to act, free to live and free to act. Well, those techniques that evolved out of that 60 years of teaching actually work for people because there's no separation between living and acting. So I took these techniques and wrote a book for the people in the world, for everybody, not just for actors. So it's not a limited area, a limited hemisphere of people. This is for everybody. And the techniques work for actors, they work for people, but they're all instrumental therapy techniques that liberate the person so that they can be free only to act, not only to act, but free to enjoy life, free to be expressive, free to be impressively affectable, and free to express how they feel. And then, of course, eliminate their demons, the damages that they've suffered growing up in our society. I have techniques that really work. But, this is not just a theoretical thing on my part. I've been using this technique on myself, I've been using this technique on other people, my actors, other people who I know, and it actually works. It's not a theoretical ideas about what you can do to help yourself. These techniques actually work. They've worked on me. I've had breakthroughs. I had an epiphany about 6 years ago dealing with my self-image I realized that I wasn't really functioning in a totally true self-image, and I got in touch with challenging that image and dealing with the objectivity of my life beyond that image, and the objectivity of what I've accomplished, who I am, how I feel, how I relate to the world, my accomplishments, etc. And my self-image underwent complete reconstruction. And instead of living in a limited self-image, I expanded that self-image to where I really discovered who I really am instead of who I thought I was, you know. Everybody in the world is living with a self-image, but most of those people, I'd say a very big percentage of people, get comfortable with that self-image. They say, well, somebody says to you, well, you're very stubborn. Says, yeah, I'm stubborn. And you embrace that because you have become accustomed to the self-image you've lived with. But that self-image might be a false or limited self-image. And a part in my book that deals with retrospective objectivity is a way to challenge and update that self-image by objectifying everything that goes beyond the way you feel about yourself in discovering what you've done, how you've related to the world, people you've affected, and how you've grown and what your contributions have been that you have not really embraced. So that self-image expands and you become aware of who you really are instead of who you thought you really were. So there's some things in the book that are life-changing techniques. I mean, it sounds a little egocentric and a little megalomaniacal, but it's really not. You know, the one thing I can say is if somebody says or talks the truth about themselves, there's nothing egocentric about that if it's true. And this stuff is true. It works. I have the proof that it works personally as well as with other people. I've talked a lot. Do you want to say anything, Doug?
When you're finished, you're making my job real easy. I just have to sit and listen.
Okay. Well, anyway, there are 4 sections in the book. The first section is dealing with identifying damaging experiences, going back and changing the ingredients and the outcome of that experience repetitiously. You can do it verbally. You can do it as an inner monologue, or you can use the imaging technique. I wrote a whole book about imaging, acting, and the unconscious. So what you do is you're actually reprogramming your unconscious memory banks, and you're changing your relationship to that very damaging experience, which elevates itself into your life and makes you unhappy and gets in the way of your progress, gets in the way of your contributions in life. So that's the first part of the book, actually repairing the damage, and you can do it verbally or imaging-wise. The second part, as I already spoke about, is retrospective objectivity, getting in touch with what your real self-image is, how you talk about yourself, how you see yourself, and how other people see you. And you question people. What do you think of me? How do you see me in the world? Your family, friends, etc., so that you can get a pretty good idea of what your self-image is before you start to objectify it and challenge it and expand it. And the third part is called second chance encounters. Now, everybody in the world wishes they would have said something to somebody at a time when they didn't. People who are not in your life anymore, who are deceased and they're gone. And these unfinished things with people in your life are haunting. They haunt you. They're incomplete. They're the lack of closure. And they bother you. They sneak up on you in your dreams. Oh, I wish I had told my father how much he meant to me. I wish I had. I said to some of the teachers that I've had how much I appreciated them. I took it for granted. I've had relationships with people that I was insensitive. I have to talk to them and tell them how I feel. And by doing this, second chance encounters, you eliminate that from being an unfinished thing in your life that haunts you in some way. And then the fourth part of the book deals with subpersonalities, which is a whole important area of dealing with the various subparts of who we are. parts of our personality, and that gets a little complicated to talk about because it's very specific. But actually, it's identifying parts of yourself that are in the driver's seat of your life and running your life, and oftentimes ruining your life, and the techniques of developing an aware ego and awareness to move those subparts of your life out of the driver's seat so that other parts of you can get into running your life, and you can move in and out of the sub-personalities, the parts of you that function on various levels, So it also reminds you in that section of your dreams. I have a section on dreams and how to understand sub-personalities appearing in your dreams, asking for redemption, so to speak. Recognize me. Listen, I'm here. Don't turn your back on me, etc. So sub-personalities is a real thing. It's many psychologists in the world spend their whole career doing sub-personality work, voice dialogue work, etc. I was exposed to it through two therapists, psychologists Hal and Sidra Stone, 35 years ago, 1975, and I've been using subpersonalities in my work with actors and in this book, for people. So essentially, that's my story. I teach 3 classes a week with actors, and I'm still going strong in that respect. My wife teaches. She works with people all over the world on Skype. She works mostly with professional working actors on series and in movies. Her name is Susanna Morris, and she's brilliant. And so the two of us have a really great relationship in the area of contributing creatively. I guess that's my story.
Okay. Well, I've been jotting down notes while you were talking, so I've got certainly lots of things to come back at you with. But since we're on the topic of actors, I did want to ask you this, because I've always been curious about it. I studied acting years ago in New York, and I dropped out in favor of being a musician. But I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Art and studied for a while, had a blast. I really enjoyed it. But one of the things I was always curious about, and I'm going to make a comparison between musicians and actors. When you see a singer, when you hear a singer, and I'll just use a couple of examples like Ella Fitzgerald or Aretha Franklin, somebody like that is just born with that incredible voice. They took no singing lessons. They just had it in their DNA. So what I'm always curious about is if you have a room full of people and everybody gets up and does a monologue or does some activity, is there such a thing as a natural born actor? Is there such a thing as somebody is born with a certain skill set that here they are, as opposed to...
Well, yeah, they are referred to as naturals. They're rare. It's rare. I once said something, I got a laugh from it. I could walk down Hollywood Boulevard and pick 19 people off the street, just surreptitiously, and I could make actors out of 16 of them, because everybody has some kind of intuitive talent, a sense of reality, a sense of truth, an imagination. Everybody has something. The level of that something varies with each person. Some people are very endowed and very gifted, but I have found in my teaching that a lot of the most gifted people are the most obstacled people too, because their gift is a liability as well as an asset. The more sensitive you are and the more affectable you are, the more impacted you are on the things that get in the way of your freedom. They make you protective, etc. So when I was at the Actor Studio, I was at the Actor Studio with Lee Strasberg for about the Actor Studio West in Los Angeles for about 7 or 8 years, and I found that the most talented actors were the people who seemed to have the most problems, the most obstacles to their freedom to act. And that's how my system evolved in terms of instrumental work, liberating the actor. But yeah, there are people who are born with a certain natural thing that they have, and they're gifted. And you'll find a natural among maybe 100,000 people, a true natural. So it's rare. So, but once you discover a person's talent, then the development of the talent is really the challenge. Talent is, I'm going to say this on the radio. Talent is as common as horse manure in a busy stable. It is really common. Everybody has some kind of talent. What is rare is the development, the freedom to access that talent and express it, and the ability craftually to use that talent to fulfill dramatic material. So the talent is kind of a gift, or natural gift, whatever, but the development and the use of that talent is rare. That's what separates the artist and the real gifted actor on the stage or on the screen from the actor who is not trained. Training is everything. I'm 87 years old and I'm still in training. I see a psychiatrist every Friday at 11 o'clock, which I'm missing today for the radio broadcast. And I'm still working on myself, and I'm still in training. I'm still reaching. I'm staying hungry, and I keep reaching, And I try desperately never to get self-impressed, because the minute you start resting on your laurels and getting self-impressed, it's over. It stops. You hit the wall. So those are my mantras. But to answer your question, yes, there are people who are born gifted, but it's rare.
So what exactly is it that you can spot? Because like I said, making the comparison with a singer, it's obvious when somebody like that sings and you just go, oh my God, the angels are crying. But
okay, I'll give you an example. A person comes into my class. They're new. They're brand new. They've had no background, no training. And they start working. I start doing instrumental liberating exercises with them, and they start to bring in monologues from plays, from films, etc. Immediately, I can tell where the actor's instincts are. Some people have wonderful instincts. They're instinctual. They understand the material. They can relate to the material psychologically, emotionally, on every level, and they have an inborn sense of truth. They have a sense of reality, a sense of truth. Now, I can spot that right away. And so that's a developable thing. Now, the people who are most blocked, who are protective, who have not exercised their imagination or their impressive ability to be affected by external or internal stimuli, those people have to be worked in instrumental areas to elevate their openness, their willingness to be affected by external stimulus, internal stimulus, etc. And at the same time, you see, a person has blocks in either one or two areas. The impressive area, they are closed off to being affectable, or the expressive area. They are very impressively affectable, but they are cut off expressively. They can't express it for fear of social obligation, fear of judgment, fear of consequence, etc. So when I work with an actor, I spot which of the areas that we have to mostly concentrate on. Is it the impressive area? They are cut off from their being able to be affected by external stimulus, internal stimulus, or are they really very overly sensitive, and by the overly sensitivity that they have, they are afraid to express it because of fear, social obligation, social fear, turn the other cheek, conditioning, etc. So some people, of course, have obstacles in both areas, and I have to deal with that instrumentally to liberate them and remove the obstacles in both areas. Then we deal with the craft, identifying the obligations of material, selecting choices, and I've created most of 31 choice approaches, how to create a choice to fulfill an obligation to a piece of material. There's 7 major obligations related to material, and we deal with them one at a time depending on the material. I've said 60 years worth of work in a paragraph.
Well, there you go. All right, we've got time for one more point, and then we're going to have
please
to
ask me anything, Doug.
Okay, well, this is, again, I'm just taking notes from what you've been talking about. You had mentioned self-image. Now, trying to judge oneself is pretty difficult because I think we come at it from a very subjective nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that subjective place is what limits us.
Right.
In terms of our image. So, you're absolutely right.
On the flip side of that, are other people necessarily a better judge of you than you are? Because they're also coming from a subjective place. Well,
but they're more objective than we are. Somebody outside of myself is more objective about me from a third person place, but I think it's a combination of all. Your own subjective identification and the objectivity of the close friends, family, etc. But of course, they're going to have a subjective take on you too. So you actually try to get everything you can get from what they give you. Now, it's also dependent not only on the way you see yourself, what other people say to you in terms of identifying your self-image. It's also related to your actions, becoming cognizant of your actions and your behavior, because your actions and your behavior manifest your self-image. So if you become increasingly aware of, I do this, or I do that. Why do I do this? I have a habit of doing that. If you become aware of your actions and the way you relate interpersonally with people socially, and you become much more observational and much more objective about it, that will also expand and elevate your knowledge of your self-image. But you see, here's the rub. The rub is that most people will read the book and they say, that's interesting, and they won't do the work. And if they won't do the work, they might as well not have read the book. It's a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly process of working on yourself. I was in therapy a long time ago, and my therapist said most people take better care of their lawns than they do of their relationships, and that's true. People are inherently lazy. Unfortunately, or they're fearful, and that breeds laziness. But you're absolutely right. People are going to tell you things about yourself that are mixed with objectivity and subjectivity, and you have to kind of select things that you can use to expand your self-image and to elevate it. But most of all, we don't really take a lot of time to go over our lives and how we've affected other people, touched other people, what our accomplishments have been, what contributions we've made to the planet, to other people. And when we do that, that expands our self-image and our awareness and our consciousness. So it's an ongoing thing. It's something you do every day. I'm an actor 24 hours every day, 31 days a month, and 12 months every year. I'm an actor every day of my life. I'm a person every day of my life, and I work on it.
I think life would be much easier for everybody if one's self-image came from the perspective of your dog, and that's where you took it from.
Okay. That's a good one. I'm going to include that in my next book.
Oh, please do.
Okay, Fido, what do you think?
Because
I think it's great. It's great. That's great. It makes me laugh. No, it's good.
It's
Your dog
true,
has
though.
no prejudice,
Absolutely none. As long as you feed it, as long as you pet it, as long as you take care of that dog.
That's right.
That dog will love you for the rest of its life. It doesn't care what you wear, how fat you are, what your hair looks like.
What a brilliant statement that is. I'm going to use it. I'm going to mention it in my class.
Oh, please do.
I think that's great, Doug.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We do have to wrap it up, unfortunately.
I enjoyed this interview,
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and maybe you can come back and we can continue it, but we got to kind of wrap this up.
I would love to come back.
Okay.
I'm sure you have more questions.
Yeah, we could go on for another half an hour, but unfortunately,
you don't have the time, and that's okay.
So let's just mention your new book. It's called A Second Chance at Life. It's out now.
Repairing Life's Damage. Repairing Life's Damage.
Okay, is it
Subtitle.
out and available now?
It's out and available. You get it very quickly on Amazon.com, and it's in a variety of bookstores all over the country. So hopefully people will pick it up and use it. You know.
And do you have a website you want to?
ericmorris.com. It's very simple. ericmorris.com. All 9 of my books are listed on that, and my classes and everything they want to know about me is on there. And ericmorris.com. Thank you for asking me that.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun, very informative to hear what you had to say. Best of luck with the book. I hope it does well. How long's it been out?
About 2 months.
Oh, okay. Is it selling well?
Yeah, actually, very well. I think for not in the best seller category yet, but I just want to help people. When somebody once told me you don't really make a lot of money writing books, and they were right. And I never wrote a book to make money, and I absolutely fulfill that prophecy. I don't make any money on my books, except I make enough to reprint them when they go out of print. When we sell out a title, I have enough money to reprint that book. But I never thought I would make any money on the books. I just wanted to get them out there, and that's what I've been doing.
Well, that's super. Well, again, Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Doug. Thank you so very much.
And we'll have you back, okay? We'll maybe
thank
in a
you.
few months.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, take care.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
The Douglas Coleman Show is now offering a complete radio promotional package for music artists. Your track will air 28 times a week for 1 month over all of our online and terrestrial platforms, as well as permanently archive on Spreaker, iTunes and many other sites. Your profile will also be featured in our featured music artists page on our website. With this package, you will also get a 15-minute interview on our show to promote your latest single, EP, LP, or upcoming gig. Similar packages like this can run hundreds of dollars and often are subscription-based. Our package has a one-time fee of just $49.99. Please go to douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP. That's douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP for complete details. Let's work together to get your music heard.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge, in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, James Ventry. Hi, James. How are you?
Pretty good. How about yourself today?
Oh, doing fine. Thank you. Let's see. You've got a lot of stuff on your bio here. Why don't we just start with at the beginning and work our way through? I assume you're not boxing anymore. Is that correct? You're a former boxer?
That's correct. I still go to the gym all the time, and I still dream of fighting because I love it. But yeah, not currently taking any fights.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your boxing background and what you were doing. When was that you were boxing?
So I've been retired for about 6 years now, and started as a young guy. Started going to the gym when I was a teenager, and then I had a bunch of amateur fights, and then took some time off when I was in college and whatnot. Stayed in the gym, but didn't really fight actively. Once I had finished my master's and was subbing and whatnot in school, ended up getting an opportunity to get a professional fight, and I took that and fought off and on professionally for around 10 years. And I got to fight all over the country. I fought at Madison Square Garden, fought in California about 10 times, got to go to the Playboy Mansion, which was really cool. So a lot of great experiences.
What was your best fight?
Probably the Madison Square Garden. I fought Julio Cesar Chavez's son, Omar Chavez.
Wow.
I would describe myself as a journeyman boxer, and really what that is someone being stupid like myself and taking fights on really short notice. So you typically get a fight on 10 days or under notice, so you're really just trying to focus on making weight. So that particular fight, I took it on 6 days notice, fought really well. I thought I actually probably won the fight, but being Omar Chavez was the name, he got a decision. And that was probably my biggest one and one of my best. But I got to fight a couple other cool places. Like, I'm a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I got to fight at Heinz Field. So those were a couple of the bigger venues and a couple of the bigger fights I had.
Okay, what weight class did you fight?
I fought at junior welterweight, so that was 140 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and one thing as far as weight classes, a lot of people might not know you. People think you sort of fight in a weight class and you can fight within that weight, but when you actually sign a contract, you sign it for a specific pound. So if you fight at If you sign a contract for 139, you come in at 139 and a 10th pound, you either have to go lose that 10th pound quickly, or you get fined 10% of your purse. So when you sign a fight and you're in a certain weight class, you actually sign it even more specific within that weight class. You sign it for a specific pound.
Wow, so you can't be over or under that particular weight?
You can be slightly you can be under, as long as you're not way under where it's outside the weight class, but you can be under. You just can't be even a 1/10 of a pound over, anything over.
All right. So you got a master's degree. What is your master's degree in?
My master's is in secondary education, and I have a bachelor's degree in history.
And now you've written a book called The Hypocrisy of America. When did you write the book?
So I had been collecting information for probably 6 years or so, and then this past winter I finally got frustrated with my procrastination and just started maybe in January, 7 days a week, putting aside at least 3-4 hours a day where I just wrote every day, and it took me probably 6 months and put together the book.
Why don't you tell us about the book? I mean, The Hypocrisy of America is an interesting title. And I think depending on what side of the political spectrum people are on, they would have a different opinion of what exactly the hypocrisy is. So why don't you tell us what you mean by it?
For sure. And, quickly on that, I've had a few, I'm very liberal, but I've had a few conservative friends who read it, and it actually changed their mind on a couple of things. So I was happy about that. But so the hypocrisy of America, the premises, our country, America, the ideals of America, I should say, are the best ideals of the world. It's, when I think of America, I think of Captain America and freedom and, the high morals of it and everything that come along with it. But oftentimes we really don't live up to that, whether it's, we've been at war almost our entire existence, about 90-something% of the time. Of our 200 some odd years of existence, we've been at some sort of, war or police interaction, whatever you want to call it. But we've always been at war. We drop bombs around the world, and I think that's driven in large part by our military-industrial complex and companies like Boeing or GE, who make huge sums of money by producing weapons. And what the book does really well is, of course I have my strong opinions on all these subjects, but I show simple lines. I don't like to do any conspiracy theory type stuff. I draw simple lines. I tell you this is happening, and this is why it's happening. And it's not a long book. It's 180 pages, and I really get right to the point on every single issue that I cover. And I cover everything from the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, African Americans in America, and some of the things with African Americans. I draw again clear lines of why they struggle a little bit more as a race than some other people have struggled, and things are set up, that don't represent the ideals of America and exclude some people, actually.
Why don't you give us an example?
Well, again, the war is a good example, but as far as with African Americans, there's different things. What I always say is, yesterday leads to yesterday leads to yesterday. So, when you think about African Americans today, and my stepson, he's African American, and he doesn't actually agree with me on any of these things, and it's just kind of funny. But he's growing up in the suburbs, and he has different opportunities than an African American who maybe grows up in the inner city. But if you go back throughout history, like I said, the yesterday to yesterday, and you go back to, let's say, a program that was backed by our government called redlining. Well, when African Americans after World War II, they're starting to do fairly well, and they would try to move into a white neighborhood, and banks were allowed to create areas on maps called redlining, and they would redline certain areas where they wouldn't lend to African Americans. Well, so if you think of historical perspective, if one of the easiest ways to create wealth is home ownership. So if you denied a group of people home ownership rights, and they couldn't lend here, and then they either bought in a poor area where property wasn't worth anything, or they had to rent there, that changes your whole dynamic of really a family history, because now that those parents, if they were bought in a good area, maybe they could have left that property to their son or daughter, those kinds of things. It really gives a lack of opportunity to create wealth. And there's certain things throughout history that has been done to African Americans, and often through our government, that has just made it more difficult for them to achieve, and that's one of the ways. As far as some other things, the prison industrial complex, that's another thing. When African Americans and whites sell drugs at approximately the same rate, but African Americans get caught much more and convicted much more and serve longer sentences, and in part that's because you tend to police in urban areas as opposed to the suburbs, and there's some legitimate reasons why they're policing there as well. Some violent crimes, those kinds of things. But if you take an 18-year-old who gets caught for a marijuana charge, and now all of a sudden he has this charge and he's in the system, it's very difficult to get out of the system, and they do things like give fines and things like that, and then when you don't meet those fines or unable to pay them, it's just really difficult once you're in the system to get out of the system. And I was arrested myself, and I can say the success I've had after getting out of prison, I don't believe I could have had it if I was African American, because to be honest, I'm a good-looking, intelligent person, and it never occurs to anybody that I might have done time. Whereas if I was African American, because you have that perception that African Americans, get arrested, those kinds of things, I probably wouldn't have had the same opportunities I've had to get out of the system like as easily as I have.
Do you offer any solutions in your book? Do you have any opinions on what can be done to correct the wrongs of the past?
In every section I did that, because I didn't want to just be someone who's pointing out all these wrongs and then not offering solutions. So pretty much in every chapter I offer, well, not pretty much, in every chapter I offer things that we can do as people, that that we can encourage our government to do or try to vote for them to do. Specifically as far as African Americans, there's we are where we are, they are where they are. So there are some things that they themselves have to do as well. So it's not just a book where I criticize everybody else and give no responsibility because we all do have our own personal responsibility as well. So I do offer solutions in that, and for that in particular, there's different things from some of their political leaders who take advantage of being caught up in certain situations, like a Jesse Jackson, where he protests a corporation or something, and really what he gets them to do is donate money to his organization, and then he gets them, and he can sometimes get them to correct a problem, but then he gets them off off their backs through donations, and so I do offer solutions in every chapter, but I don't just blame one section or one side 100%, because sometimes we do have our own personal blame.
Okay, now how long has this book been out?
So it was the end of January, so it's not too long, and it's gotten some great reviews and it's done okay.
Oh, good. And where can people find it?
They can go to Amazon, and if they just enter, in the search, The Hypocrisy of America, it'll come right up.
Okay. Well, check that out. The author's name is James Ventry. Also, on your bio, you says that you are a part owner of an up-and-coming production company called White Lion Studios. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we've had some fantastic success with that as well. For especially when I say low budget, films. I'm talking ultra low budget, and I mean $5,000. People are shocked, especially anybody in the industry or anybody else who's tried to make independent movies, those kinds of things, that we've made movies for $5,000. I mean, full feature-length movies. And we've had some success. We've had Crimson, the motion picture, was on the shelves in Best Buy, so it actually got into the stores, available online as well everywhere. A movie called Wolf House was on the shelves in Walmart. And then our most recent movie was called Attack of the Killer Shrews, and that has been on TV on Retro Network. So it aired in like 28 states and 101 networks. Or the name is slipping my head right now. I apologize.
That's all right.
But anyway, Attack of the Killer Shrews, and it's actually airing again, I believe, this Saturday night. So we've had a lot of success. We're a studio with about, in our partnership or our corporation, there's 8 of us, and we each play different roles. But it's been a great journey with us, and we're our next film is going to be filmed in 2020 in Pennsylvania.
The films that you are producing, you're actually making them yourself, or do people come
Correct.
to you and okay? So who's doing the screenplays?
So most of the time, the writing takes place from Ken Cosentino, and he writes. He's super talented. He writes, he directs, and he also does some of the acting. So in The Killer Shrews, he had a small part, a character named Dewey, who was a really funny character, and he's one of people's favorite characters. The movie has some swearing and whatnot, but kids, if their parents let them watch it, kids seem to love this movie. But Ken does most of the writing. Our president, Bill Kennedy, he recently wrote something that he's hoping we can film in another year or two. But Ken does most of the writing.
So the movies that you guys make, you said you made them for $5,000. So that's $5,000 per film.
Yeah, and the budgets have varied. I want to say Crimson, our first one, we probably filmed it for, I'd say, under $10,000, and then we probably put another $5,000 into the movie, promoting it and doing some things like editing, those kinds of things. Attack of the Killer Shrews, which was our latest one, that was filmed for $5,000, and I'm not sure, I can't remember what we put into it afterward, but it was, the whole production was filmed for $5,000. We had got an investor to invest $5,000, who wanted to see what we could do for that little bit of money, and he was really impressed. So he is going to hopefully be a future investor, because he was really shocked at what we were able to do with $5,000.
What's Crimson about?
So Crimson, and that was one I had probably my biggest role, because I've acted in all the movies, or most of the movies as well. So Crimson, I play, the premise of the movies, it was a really good story. So it was written by Ken and a gentleman named Mike Schimmel. And what happens is, there was a comic book artist, and he's obsessed with this character he's trying to create, Crimson, and he's been living off some past success. Well, he finally gets to pitch the movie, or the idea, for this next comic book, and his bosses hate it, and they fire him, and his girlfriend breaks up with him, and now he's in a bar getting drunk and belligerent, and he ends up getting beat up by these guys really bad, and when he wakes up in the hospital, he thinks he is this character, and then he doesn't really have a superpower, but he one of the things that happened from his injuries is that he can't feel pain. So then he clashes with our family, which the Emersons were kind of like an Irish mob family, and so I played Tommy Emerson. I was like the main antagonist, and so it's him colliding with our family in our poor city. Kind of takes place in, we didn't label it Niagara Falls, but Niagara Falls is kind of unfortunately a poor city, and with a lot of blight, and so it's him clashing with us. And it was a really, really good story, and some fantastic fight scenes in it.
Okay, so where are your films available? How do you do distribution?
So we have a website, whitelionstudios.net, where all the films can be purchased. That's everything from Break the Sky, Crimson the Motion Picture, Wolf House, and Attack of the Killer Shrews. And then, like I said, some of them were available on other venues and websites. But I think currently the easiest place for anybody to get any movies, because I believe Wolf House is still through Walmart, but it's also on our website. So whitelionstudios.net is the easiest way for anybody to purchase any film.
Okay, and they're purchasable or downloadable? How does that work?
Those are
streaming?
We have DVDs, and I believe we have. I'm not sure if the streaming is available through that site or another. I'm not positive on that. It's a good question. I'll have to ask. Ken or Bill that.
Okay. What projects are you working on right now? Anything?
So our next film is going to be called The Glob, and that's the one that's going to be this little town in Pennsylvania. They are giving us kind of carte blanche for the entire town, and we're going to film there next summer, and they're going to basically kind of shut it down for us for a week, and so The Glob is sort of a little bit of the sequel to the Attack of the Killer Shrews, and so right now we're currently looking for some sponsorships for that, and what we do on our sponsorships, we do a great job. And we did this with the Attack of the Killer Shrews, especially. We had our sponsors. They pay X amount of dollars, and depending on what you're going to pay, you get your name in that movie so many times. So one of the sponsors, they're Bob's Smokehouse. They were on a bomb, and it would just keep circling with his name on this bomb that was going through. So that's what we do, like product placement is, and that's basically how we're looking as we go forward. We have a contract to get all our movies on TV. And it's just like Shrews will air this Saturday. So moving forward, we're hopeful to get product placement, and that's how we'll generate our funds more so than even sales of DVDs or anything like that, or streaming.
Great. Well, James, we got to wrap it. Once again, your website is White Lion.
So whitelionstudios.net, and if they want to read more about myself or the book, they can go to thehypocrisyofamerica.net as well. So whitelionstudios.net and thehypocrisyofamerica.net.
All right, super. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Best of luck with your film projects. I hope they do well. I'll check it out. I'm kind of curious about them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was great speaking with you as well.
To the